And in 3,
And
2,
here we go.
1.
We are
Content.
we are
It's
live, and this
here.
is my first ever live stream in the history of my channel where I am hardwired to the internet. I'm not using Wi-Fi today. I know. I'm doing
Ooh.
big things. So hopefully the stream is
Wow.
better. Hopefully, we won't lose a lot of I had a really our members only live stream on Sunday. Towards the end, I was losing camera, audio. It was all bad. So I'm hoping
Forgot about the
tonight
members
is
only.
better. You did forget about the members live stream. That's okay. Because it was a holiday and stuff, I didn't have as many people on it as I normally do. So I think I might do one next Sunday because
Well, do one next Sunday because
yeah.
that'd be fun. Wait, what is
Yeah.
next? Okay.
Next Sunday is the 12th. Hello,
Okay.
Kitea. How's it going?
The 19th is WrestleMania.
The what? The 19th is what?
WrestleMania.
Oh, they
And
still
my
do
mom's.
WrestleMania? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They still did.
It's huge. Huge. It's 2 nights now. And it's in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Dale. Hey, Kataya.
Hello, Dell. Hello. Rachel's here. This is going to be a good night because this is all about our generation.
About us
I'm
now.
super excited. It's about us. It's all about us.
It's about Gen X.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to read through the 13th generation portion of Generations by William Strauss and Neil Howe. We are in the chapter called the Millennial Cycle, which is chapter 12, I think. Let me double check that. Chapter 11. I'm sorry, I lied. I'm a liar. It's chapter 11. So we were called the 13th generation by William Strauss and Neil Howe because this book was published in 1991 and we did not have our name yet of Generation X. Yeah, we would. It was coming. Before this time, before we were called the 13th by Strauss and Howe, pretty much the only reference name that we got were slackers or 20-somethings or, baby busters. So baby busters. Yep. So we started last week with this topic of the 13th generation or Generation X, but this week we're really going to dive into it and kind of read through these pages and discuss to hear. It's going to be interesting. So remember that because this was from 1991, the oldest Gen Xers were still in their late 20s, and the youngest Gen Xers, like myself, I was only 14 years old in 1991. So we still hadn't made our mark yet on the culture. This was before Nirvana, before Kurt Cobain, before the Clintons was elected president, so we hadn't voted yet. So this was a very early snapshot of our generation before we really got to make our mark on anything. So it'll be interesting to see from the perspective of two boomers how he thought what they thought of Generation X. So love to hear you guys' comments in the chat tonight as we go through and read this. Let us know if you think that they were spot on, if you think they got some things wrong. And yeah. And then next week we're gonna start looking into the future. The future of the 90s.
Oh, yes. Ooh.
All right. Hello, Joseph. Glad you're here. Yes, today is the last chapter and part 2 of the book. We are going to wrap that up. We are going to do a quick mention at the end of the millennial generation. We might wait for next week. It just depends how much time we have. But at this time, the millennials were so young that they're not going to have hardly anything in here. So we're just kind of gloss over that. And then next week, we will start part 3. As I said, we're going back to the future. And we'll start with chapter 12, The Past is Prologue. And then we're going to start getting into their predictions and completing the millennial cycle. So the plan is to have this book completed by the end of April. So, and then we'll get into the 4th turning in May. All right. We ready? We ready, Grindelson?
We ready.
We ready. All right.
Thank you for the asking about my arm. It's
it yes. Give him a quick medical update.
I'm waiting I still need to get an appointment to go see So
oh goodness.
I'm waiting for that. Hopefully. Hopefully that'll be soon.
Yay, California.
but I have drugs, so I'm okay.
Well, that definitely makes the experience much more tolerable.
Yeah, but I'd like to get it done sooner than later so I can
Well, of course.
stop being a lump. Which is what I mean. At work, I can't do much.
It happens. All right, we're going to start on page 320 at the very top of the page, the first full paragraph. I'm just going to kind of read through this now because I want to get a little bit detailed since it's us. I'm a little bit biased. But yeah, so we're going to, and as we go through, I'll just stop as we hit some points that I really want to discuss. And if there's any questions you guys have or any comments, put them in the chat and let us know. Okay, here we go. Every year through the 1980s, new reports of Gen X's academic scores have triggered harsh elder assessments of their schooling and intelligence. Boy, we're just starting off with a bang. The barrage began in 1983 when a nation at risk despaired of a rising tide of mediocrity emerging from America's schools. Alan Bloom's The Closing of the American Mind declared the 13ers' minds quite closed, and Diane Ravitch and Chester Finn's What Do 17-Year-Olds Know answered their own question by saying, in effect, not much. Grading 13ers collectively in 29 subjects, Ravitch and Finn dished out 20 Fs and no other grade higher than a C-. The sympathy and indulgence once offered a low-scoring young boomer had evaporated. Columnist Richard Cohen recently called for humiliating, embarrassing, mocking, you name it, the dummies who have scored so low on these tests. And just when you think America's students can't get any dumber, reported Jack Anderson in 1989, out comes another book like Steve Allen's Dumpf, or another blue ribbon report from the Carnegie Foundation, calling them shallow and chastising their uncivil speaking and deteriorating campus culture. All this in an era of campus calm that would have been the envy of any boomer era dean.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. And let's face it, none of that has gone away. Let's every generation since then, we have had diminishing results in education to the point where we're even saying now that, these kids can't even read. And
right.
How do they do math? And, but we weren't the first generation to get that treatment because the boomers got it too. But the boomers
got much more love for their.
Yeah, they got a lot more love, whereas we got like they were like, let's make institutional changes rather than actual, what is the problem? It was, a lot of it was overcrowding in at least in urban areas, overcrowding in schools, lack of quality teachers, and just no resources. And that's still the same.
Which is wild because in 1979, we created the Department of Education and started throwing billions of dollars at education. So it's wild that we've spent so much money and yet the outcomes keep getting worse.
Right.
And
because again, it was institutionalized. It wasn't they tried to make it better on a macro level, and it needed to be made better on a micro level. And
100%.
Each individual jurisdiction and each individual school state should have been, would have been able to increase if they had just been given, funds with no strings attached.
Yeah.
And that's where
maybe. I mean, I think, the administrative section of schools and education has grown exponentially. Like you'll give a school $1 million and 600,000 of it will go to principals, school boards, administrative offices, and none of it goes to the classroom. And it's like, and this is a topic I don't want to get into the weeds on, but it's just we have put so much focus on education and so much money, and yet it seems like every generation the outcomes get worse. There was also quite the shift in what we taught in schools from when, the 70s and 80s until now. There's been a lot. When we were growing up, we had reading, writing, arithmetic. We had yeah, it was skills, learning skills, home ec classes, shop classes, things that, that you could learn some skills and be educated. But now it feels like the education has shifted more towards thoughts and feelings, and we're all, treated the same or whatever. And we've gotten away from the focus of education. But anyways, but you're right. It has gotten worse each generation. But they really did not like us, according to this book. They thought we were really dumb.
They thought we were dumbasses.
Right or wrong, the message sent to 13ers and their would-be employers is clear: that these kids got an inferior education and are equipped with inferior minds, that they are, to quote one boomer college president, junkie. 13ers find these criticisms overblown. They look upon themselves, they look upon themselves as pragmatic, quick, sharp-eyed, able to step outside themselves to understand the game of life as it really gets played. And whatever they are, 13ers insist they have to be, because of the way they were raised, because of the world into which they are coming of age. To begin with, 13ers see no welcome mat on their economic future. Since the mid-1970s, while the costs of setting out in life, college tuitions, and housing have raced ahead of inflation, the rewards, salaries, and fringe benefits for young workers have steadily fallen behind. They are suffering what economist Robert Kuttner describes as a remarkable generational economic disease, a depression of the young. Boy, I wish we had some Gen Zers here tonight to talk with us. A depression of the young, which makes 13ers feel uniquely thirsty in a sea of affluence. Money isn't everything. That's a great line. Money isn't everything, but 13ers find themselves both unprepared for and uninvited to most other avenues of social approval. Money means survival, and for a generation whose earliest life experiences have taught them not to trust others, survival must come first. I really like that paragraph.
And it's true, and survival did come first, especially for a lot of us. I mean,
definitely.
I was working in an office in my early 20s, and throughout my 20s, worked a 9 to 5. So, in an office full of, boomers, and very few of my colleagues were my peers. You know what I mean?
I would say that the idea of things like gig work, the McJobs type thing, really happened with our generation. Our parents and our grandparents seemed to be the types that would get into a company and stay for 40 years, or have a family business, or the pensions and all that stuff, or get into a union job. But for our generation, it kind of started feeling like gig work, McJobs type stuff. And because the corporations, the businesses started closing down, merging, going overseas, downsizing, all that stuff. So we got a whole different world than our parents did.
Well, and that became the norm as well. It wasn't, it wasn't quite as looked upon well if you kept hopping jobs every couple of years.
It was, you were looked as that was a bad thing.
That was a really bad thing. Whereas that started to shift in the mid 90s, when especially our generation started to graduate college and get those degrees and say, hey, I realize I could spend only a couple of years at this job and move on and get something better. And that's what started to happen for us.
And I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop you.
No,
there.
that's okay.
Okay, they said something earlier in the book about how the kind of the social contract had broken down between companies and workers. Like, the workers, employees weren't getting what our parents used to get, and so
what the hell is a pension?
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're a government worker, maybe but I don't know if anybody else does. But a pension is.
I had no clue. And even like by the time I was able to get a 401k, that's not the same thing.
No,
it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Right.
Oh my God. I mean,
and things were really skewed. I mean, with good intentions with programs like Social Security, it really skewed the mindset of a lot of people as to how things were compensated, saving for the future and retirement. and because that money wasn't taken out and set aside and invested, it was taken out and spent by Congress over the last 100 years, though now there's no money there. So but it changed the idea of businesses having to offer any kind of pension or any kind of, it's just, they've done a lot of programs that have messed that up, but yeah. And now for Gen X retirement, I don't even know what Gen X retirement looks like. The boomers won't retire. I don't know what Gen X retirement looks like.
We probably won't be retiring much either, unless, there's obviously there's always going to be a certain percentage of the cohort that is going to and exceeds but I think for the most part, we're going to have a lot of workers into their 70s and maybe even their 80s.
Right.
And the boomers, you're right, they're not retiring either. My mom's 75. She's working, 9 to 5. God bless her. There isn't a whole lot of retirement happening anywhere across the board.
Yeah.
And, people are just working themselves to death, and the corporate America is like, okay with it. So,
yeah. And I don't know if it's because they want to or because they need to. I think it's probably a mix of both.
It's both. A lot of people both. I think, my mom likes to work, so she wants to keep.
That's how my mom and stepdad, they're in their late 60s, and they both love to work. They both have amazing businesses. They both have amazing jobs, and they make such good money doing what they do while they want to do it. It's like you hate to tell them to stop, but at some point it's like.
But if they don't want to stop, it's okay as long And in truth is that they've earned their spot.
Right.
It's not for me to say that,
absolutely.
A boomer can't do whatever job it is that they're doing better than anyone else because they have earned their spot. Geez.
Right. It's a reflection of how, we're living longer. And it's just and the economy is changing, and the job market's changing, and with people living longer, we're just going through a lot of changes as a society, and
so
we're gonna have to adapt and adjust.
Crisis right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
You might call it a secular crisis, right?
You might do that.
Might be the fourth turning. Is that something that sounds familiar?
I think it might. All right, let's get back to the book here. Older critics seldom acknowledge the odd twists that have so far plagued the 13er life cycle. In the early 1970s, Norman Lear produced All in the Family style television shows that bred child cynicism about the competence of the adult world. Then, in the late 80s, Lear's People for the American Way whipsawed the grown-up kids, thus nurtured with a stinging report rebuking their apathy and disengagement from the political process. When 13ers were entering school, they heard gurus like Charles Rathbone say there was no single indispensable body of knowledge that every child should know, so their schools didn't teach it. Then upon finishing school, they heard new gurus like E.D. Hirsch in cultural literacy say yes, there was such knowledge, and they hadn't learned it. 13ers were told, as Rathbone had urged, to be self-reliant, independent, self-actualizing individuals. So they learned to watch adults carefully and emulate how they behave, collectively resembling Tatum O'Neal and Paper Moon, the kind of kids adults have a hard time finding adorable. We're just not adorable. We were not adorable kids, apparently. Gen X is very different. Where I'd like to hear what it was like for Gen X where you grew up, Taya. Because I know this is definitely American centered a book. It's definitely American culture focused. So yeah, let me know what it was like for Gen X in the 80s where you're from. All right. Let's keep this going. Imagine coming to a beach at the very end of a long summer of big crowds and wild goings on. The beach bunch is sunburned, the sand shop-worn, hot and full of debris, no place for walking barefoot. You step on a bottle and some cop cites you for littering. That's how 13ers feel following the boom. Much like River Phoenix in the film Running on Empty, first wave 13ers have had to cope and survive in whatever territory the boomers have left behind. At each phase of life, oh my God, that's beautiful. Their early access to self-expression and independence stripped them of much of the pleasure of discovery and rebellion, leaving them, in Bret Easton Ellis's words, looking up from the asphalt and being blinded by the sun. By the time Ellis's peers came of age, the symbolic meanings of sex, drugs, student rights, whatever, had all faded. What they found instead were the harsh realities of social pathology. One by one, 13ers have slowed or reversed these trends. The SAT decline, the youth crime, the substance abuse, the early sex. But 13ers have felt the full brunt of them and have borne the ensuing adult criticism.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Like all the shit that you threw back down to us, we are like, yeah, fuck you. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to be better. And you're still going to criticize us.
Yeah.
We can't win with you people.
Yeah. Yeah. Can never win. And it's just been like this our whole lives.
And then, so we stopped trying. And that's why we stopped caring so much. And that's how we got that reputation for, the Gen Xers don't care. No, of course we don't care. Why should we?
Why should we? You told us not to.
Yeah, you told us not to. You told us we don't. You told us we don't count.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for listening. I don't know.
Yep. You told us we were stupid and uneducated and we're slackers and didn't care. And so.
And then we watched you do it again to another generation. Only this time we agreed with you.
Yeah. I really like this next paragraph. 13ers, not boomers, were America's true children of the 60s and especially the 70s.
Yeah.
An awakening era that seemed euphoric to young adults was to them a nightmare of self-immersed parents, disintegrating homes, schools with conflicting missions, confused leaders, a culture shifting from G to R ratings, new public health dangers, and a me-decade economy that tipped toward the organized old and away from the voiceless young. That's freaking poetry right there. That is just poetry. It couldn't have been said any better. We were what seemed so great for the boomers in their me decade and their flower children and their me decade of the 70s. What seemed so great to them seemed like absolute just horror to us.
So true.
Yeah. It's just a really great line.
What was that movie with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver? Ice Storm.
Oh yeah. It was set in the 70s.
Yeah, that whole paragraph, that's the movie that was like, I was thinking about that whole time. It was like how they were dealing with those kids, how they were dealing with each other and their stupid little key parties and all that.
Yes, I need to revisit that movie. I had not seen that movie since it came out.
So hard to watch though, man. So hard to watch.
Yeah.
But good movie. Real good movie. And if you haven't seen it and you're interested in like what it was to be like an early, because I think that movie is like 74 or something like that. So those kids were Gen Xers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were dealing with.
Right. Before the parents started divorcing, when they were all just going out and doing their fun stuff. Yeah. So it makes sense, Kitaya, the different culture. Because latchkey kids were a thing in our culture simply because the divorce rate skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. So there or the mom left the home and mom started working outside the home.
Yeah.
So between those two things converging at the same time, latchkey kids were everywhere.
Yeah, for me it was both my parents were working. So
right.
I had to get off of school and walk home and get to the apartment.
Yep.
So, yep. And then, my school was literally less than a mile away from my apartment. So, I mean, I look at it today and I'm like, well, that's not too far.
Yeah.
But, I was like 7 or 8. I was allowed to do that.
Yep.
I didn't let my kid walk home until he was about 12 or 13, and then he had a phone.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you have your phone in your hand.
Yeah. Be
Don't
careful.
And do not have both headphones in. I want you to be able to hear.
Right. Be aware of your surroundings. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Grow up fast was the adult message. That they did, graduating early to young adult realism in literature and film, and turning into what American Demographics magazine has termed proto-adults in their early teens, where 2 decades earlier, boomers had lingered in post-adolescence well into their 20s. That's funny because there's that meme that says that Gen Xers looked like 30 when they were teenagers and they look like 30 now in their 50s or something along that line.
Yeah.
We've been this way since since we were in our teens. Yeah. Proto adults.
The only thing is we got a lot more gray now and a lot less
hair. A little bit.
Less hair.
At every phase of life, 13ers have encountered a world of more punishing consequence than anything their silent or boomer elders ever knew. Consider the 13ers' matter-of-fact approach to sexuality, yet another trait that has brought adult complaint. First wavers were just reaching puberty when adults were emitting highly charged sexual signals in all directions. At the time, sex education was unabashedly value neutral. Empty houses provided easy trysting spots, and their parents were, as Ellen Goodman describes them, equally uncomfortable with notions that sex is evil and sex is groovy. With adults having removed attitudinal barriers against the libido, 13ers had begun re-erecting age-old defense mechanisms, platonic relationships, group dating, and a youth culture reminiscent of lost-era street life, in which kids watch out for their own safety and for the physical integrity of their own circle of friends. Unlike boomers, 13ers are coming of age, knowing where the youth euphoria of the late 1960s actually led. As Redlands College's Kim Bloom puts it, the sexual revolution is over, and everybody lost.
It's interesting where they're not even talking about AIDS there, although they are.
Yeah.
I don't
know. I don't remember if they get into AIDS at all.
Yeah,
I think they do talk about it in some point in this book. I read this chapter a couple of weeks ago, so I'm going through. I can't remember, but yeah, they are in a lot of ways. Yeah. Because it was the free sex and love, and all that stuff of the 60s and the me generation, the 70s. And then it turned into, you're going to get AIDS, you're going to get an STD, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to like it all. But we did that to ourselves in a lot of ways. It wasn't, we were told not to. We kind of, but the messaging kind of made, I don't know. It was a partnership between them telling us not to and us being like,
yeah, maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't. Yeah.
Well, I mean, seriously, I remember, because AIDS started right as I was becoming horny teenager, and right. God, it was like scary for a while there because you didn't know what to do, and you were like, I don't know, you hear shit like Eddie Murphy saying a girl have sex and her dick fall off,
Yeah.
You think about the pop culture and how it was like, the messaging was just fucked up in the beginning, and yeah, so all of that had a direct impact on why, our generation, waited right. for a while. Certain of us did. I don't know. I know a lot of people who were already active in school, but
it was a mixture. It was definitely a mixture of, we definitely all didn't handle it the same. No. There was definitely some that went to one extreme and one that went to the other.
Yeah, I thought dare meant dare me to do drugs. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Until I was in college. Yeah, but I got to college early. So.
Yep. We were made to feel ashamed if we did any of that. Yep, yeah, that's true. Sure. It was just a lot of mixed messaging from our parents. The do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. And again, the rebellion wasn't there because the parents were the ones that had rebelled against their parents with their sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So how do we rebel? The best way to do that is to just don't care or go back the other way conservatively, or, like, but we can't rebel with more sex and drugs because that's what they did.
It's hard to rebel too sometimes when you're like told, it's okay, we'll do whatever you need to do, and
right.
if you need to call me,
I don't care where you are.
Yeah. Or no, I got a little more. Yeah, I got. I had my parents were a little more interested. They were like, no worries, go out, do your thing. But if you have a problem,
as a Zennial, yeah, right. And as a Zennial, I got a little bit more millennial parenting than Gen X parenting at times. Yeah. They were starting to take more in, like, they were, and I come from a very small town in a conservative family, so that's definitely a different. They were always more conservative and strict with how they raised us, but they still let me go out and do things. Let my brother go out and, especially when we were kids, we could go out and run, the neighborhood and whatever. It was still very high trust at the time, so we could go out and do whatever when we were kids.
Parenting was pretty popular in my But also, it's like, just be home before dark. If you're not, let us know where you are. Don't make us worry. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Which I think is, I think that's a pretty good way to be. I tried to do that with my teenager, and it was hard at first, but then I was like, no, I want him to go out and have his experiences. I want him to go out and make his bad decisions and do things that he would never want to tell me about, but always let him know that if he ever needs to call me to come get him, no matter what time of day or what you're doing, call me. But to let them go and just, and mess up. It's hard.
I had to kick mine in the pants to get him to go out and do something.
I did at first, but then he got better.
Give him a couple years.
Yep. Ooh, all right. This is good. This is good stuff. This is a really good chapter. I know I'm a little bit biased there since it's about us. The 13er life cycle experience has, so far, been the direct inverse of the silent generation, where the silent passed through childhood in an era of parental suffocation and entered young adulthood just as barriers to youth freedom began to loosen. 13ers have faced exactly the opposite trend. Where the silent grew up with a childlike awe of powerful elders, 13ers have acquired an adult-like fatalism about the weakness and uncertainty of elders and question their ability to protect the young from future danger. When the first silent were children, America was in the skids of depression, but by their 20th birthday, public confidence was vast and rising. When the first 13ers were born, America was riding high, and GI leaders seemed to be achieving everything at once. But then, as they reached adolescence, the nation mired itself in doubt. The silent emerged from their storybook childhood, hoping to add some nuance and subtlety to a culture they found oversimple. 13ers, by contrast, are growing up in what teacher and author Patrick Welch describes as a world of information overload. And to say that before the internet is wild.
Yeah. Well, it was almost there. And there was a lot more. Anyone who was paying attention at that point could see that there was a lot more coming than what at 91 and 90 and 91. So we were almost there already.
Yeah. And it's funny, we were watching on Monday night at the movies over on the Discord. We've been watching documentaries the last few weeks about the 80s and 90s. And we just ended the 80s and started the 90s last night. And the tonal shift of just the documentaries about the 80s into the 90s was quite jarring. Like, it went from this, like, the 80s is awesome and everything is great in America, yay. And then the 90s, it's like, well, everything sucks. Everything's going downhill. Like, it's just just even in the documentaries, the tonal shift was very striking. So yeah, getting into the 90s with on the verge of the real information overload. But yeah, it was coming. All right. Hearing others declare everything too complex for yes or no answers. 13ers struggle to filter out noise, cut through rhetoric, and isolate the handful of practical truths that really matter. Also, unlike the homogenous young silent, 13ers are coming of age with sharply diverging personal circumstances, what an economist would call a spreading bell curve in education, family economics, and career opportunities. Where their parents once struggled to break free from a tight generational center of gravity, 13ers wonder if they will ever be able to find one. My God, I really like the way they wrote this.
Yeah, that's a really salient point too, because, and it makes much, if you think about it, it just makes more sense.
Yeah.
The fact that we're not as homogeneous as our previous cohort.
Right.
You know, all the generations behind us are certainly going to be less, or are going to be, way less homogeneous than we are. And that gives us all a different outlook on, everything. And you can't compare, apples to apples when the fruits are like everywhere. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You can't, everybody's a fruit, everyone's a type of fruit, and you're all fruits, but you can't compare them because
the spectrum has been widened so wide as to
apples
life
to
experience.
I like
yeah.
that.
So that was a really great point. I really liked what they said there. Let's see. I'm gonna speed through this so we can get into 13er facts, because I like 13er facts. Confronted with these facts of life, 13ers have built a powerful survival instinct wrapped around an ethos of personal determinism. In their world, what a person is, what he looks like, and whether or not he succeeds depends less on what a person is inside than on how he behaves. 13ers are constantly told that whatever bad things strike people their age, from AIDS to drug addiction, from suicides to homicides, are mainly their own fault. In this sort of youth environment, staying alert to the physical is an assertion of virtue. Unlike boomers at like age, a low-income 13er probably comes from a world of splintered families and general hopelessness, and has little in common with some Richie Rich out in the suburbs. And so kids feel obliged to dress up at an age when most boomers dress down, to preserve a sense of personal honor, and to avoid being disrespected in a real-life game of King of the Mountain. Doing what they feel they must, knowing it brings adult criticism. 13ers have come to accept, even to take a perverse fun in, what a young rapper would call attitude in being bad. They tend to agree with their elders that probably they are a wasted bunch.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of the individual 13er, weak peer competition isn't such bad news. Their own cultural artifacts make half-comic references to their own garbage equality. Chris Kresge, the 26-year-old lead writer for Remote Control, a 13er designed TV quiz show parody, admits his show is stupid. In 13er lingo, words like stupid, bad, or random are words of praise. The Bon Jovi song You Give Love a Bad Name became an instant hit among the teens of the 1980s. In 1990, when a think tank issued yet another negative report on 13ers, documenting their massive cheating, resume fraud, assaults on teachers, venereal disease, pregnancies, and materialism, its authors afterward remarked that 13ers themselves seemed to agree with these findings. In River's Edge, a film evoking how many 13ers look at life, one teenager mockingly says to his buddies, "You young people are a disgrace to all living things, to plants even. You shouldn't even be seen in the same room as a cactus."
Must have been a Pew Research paper.
Yeah. You're probably right. That's good. It's just interesting how I feel like they were nailing our generational feeling. I don't feel like they're far off here. I'm kind of impressed by the insight that you could have for a generation that's not your own. At that moment in time.
Especially a generation that, let's face it, at that point wasn't even very old. We're talking just had reached either our young adults or just had reached young adulthood, or our,
we were about We were about 12 to 29. Yeah, about that,
You don't really, I mean, that's when you're just starting to form your core identity, not just as an individual, but also as a cohort. And our identity was, was what we were being told that we were, slackers.
Right.
We were, this is the rhetoric was, everything that we've talked about so far. I mean, none of it is it's not surprising. This is what we lived through.
Yeah, it's what we lived through. They nailed it.
They got it. Yeah. They got it. It wasn't that difficult to see what was going to go on and what was happening.
Right.
What I think would be more interesting is to take a look at where we have come from, because this is where we've come from. This is where we, this is our origin story. If we were doing a superhero movie, the far more interesting thing to me is where we're going and where we were as adults and how we parented and what our impact is going to be on the world going forward, because that's the unknown still to this day.
Yeah. And I feel like we are kind of almost the unseen generation, because like after 9/11, we just basically fell off the map when it came to any kind of pop culture or news making.
Yeah, because it was all about millennials.
It was all about millennials and boomers. And now, granted, we were making a lot of the pop culture. We were making the movies and TV shows.
Yeah, we just kind of we just slid into the background.
But we were just, Judd Apatow would make big movies. We just kind of did our own thing.
That's what we do. It's who we are. We're just going. We'll be there. You won't see us, but we're going to do the job, and
we're going to make sure that everything keeps rolling and working while the boomers and the millennials battle it out over whatever it is that they're battling out. We're just going to keep going and make things work. And it's bizarre. And I also think that, our generation was also the ones that really dove into the helicopter parenting. The latchkey kids and the free range kids of the 70s and 80s, a lot of them turned into the helicopter parents of the 2000s, and which is, I guess, a make a logical response.
Yeah, I still think there was a good number. I think they were mostly led, though, to the helicopter path by the boomers.
They were
boomers who were the oldest boom, the youngest boomers who were having kids still, as the oldest Gen Xers. Those youngest boomers tended to be much more helicoptery than the Gen X parents. Not to say that Gen X parents didn't do that, but I feel like they were just buying into whatever parental trends were already happening.
That's a good point. I
think a lot of the Gen X parents also decided that they weren't going to buy into that as well, and created kind of a cohort of kids that weren't helicoptered. But that's a very small percentage.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe Generation Jones are the worst offenders of helicopter parenting, maybe the late 50s, early 60s. I don't know. I could be wrong. But the helicopter parents came from somewhere, for whatever reason. And it's just crazy how much of a, it still blows people's minds when I show them it's 10 p.m. where do you know where your children are, PSAs. It's still wild to think that they had to put PSAs on television to remind people that they had kids. And then a decade later, everyone got a trophy, and little Billy's schedule was completely booked from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. from school and after work or after school activities and extracurriculars and sports. And I'm all over you all the time with your day planned. I don't know.
It's pretty wild. And I'll tell you this, it is hard as a parent to keep up with the other parents too, especially if you're like, I was an older parent. Okay, I was 35 when my kid was born, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of crap I was not going to do. I'm just like,
Right.
nah, I don't need that shit.
That's a good point. Depending on
Yeah.
how old you are,
Yeah,
it definitely influences how you parent.
For sure. I was not about to overschedule my kid.
Right. Right.
I let my kid decide what they wanted to do. Now, I'm not going to say I wasn't totally, hippie parent either. My kid has had a personal yogi since she was 2. So we don't see them very often, but yeah, he does. He has a yoga instructor he's known since he was 2. They worked together as he got older.
Wow.
A lot of camps that they did. It's a great thing. And that's
sounds kind of hippie-ish. I'm not gonna lie. It sounds kind of hippie-ish.
I know. It's great. I was taking my kid to the park one day. I saw a bunch of parents with their toddlers going into a gymnasium. I wandered over and I'm like, what is this? And it's toddler yoga. I'm like, I live in California. Of course it's toddler yoga. How much is this? Of course. I know where I am and I embraced it, I would love he had toddler yoga. It was amazing.
That's interesting. You crazy Californians, you West Coast liberal hippies.
Very, very. It was very. I used to take them to the West Hollywood play park, which is like right in the heart of Boys Town in West Hollywood. And man, it was so much fun when he was a little kid.
Did you lose a light?
I lost everything.
Uh-oh. Well, I can still see you. Well, I'm going to go back to reading and you can fix what you got going on there.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. Lacking the ego strength to set agendas for others, 13ers instead react to the world as they find it. They're proud of their ability to poke through the hype and the detail to understand older people far better than older people understand them. They take solace in the privacy that affords them. Many even delight in the most demeaning images of youth ever crafted by the electronic media. Max Headroom, beheaded in an accident, imprisoned within TV sound bites. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, flushed down the toilet as children, deformed by radiation, nurtured on junk food. And Bart Simpson, the underachiever, whose creator likens him to everyone's disgusting little brother, the little spikehead whom William Bennett says he'll straighten out with a couple of soap sandwiches. Beyond low self-esteem and blighted minds, what these pop icons all have in common is that they were created and promoted by boomers, the 13ers' principal nemesis. Someday, some way, 13ers would love to get those boomers on life's equivalent of remote control, swivel their yuppie chairs around, and dump them in a vat of greenish goo. That's a very 1991 paragraph.
I don't know. Eastman and Laird, I don't know, are really that. I don't think they're really boomers.
Who?
Okay, Peter Laird certainly is, but Kevin Eastman, I don't know. The guys who created Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah. Well, they weren't, but the characters were Gen Xers. Right?
Oh, for sure, the characters were.
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. The characters here are all Gen X characters. Yeah,
created by boomers. But I don't know that Kevin Eastman. Well, like I said.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's because I don't know. He doesn't strike me as being a boomer. He's more Gen X. But
yeah,
that's okay.
Gotcha.
He's 61 born, so he's on the cusp.
Yeah, he's a cusper. Gotcha. I love this, and I think I might have to make this into a T-shirt merch for the channel. My generation was born on Friday the 13th. I think that's really a great way to describe us. My generation was born on Friday the 13th, insists Bowdoin College's Greg Lindbergh. That's a day you can view two ways. You can fear it or you can face it and try to make it a great day in spite of the label. That's what my generation is going to do. I love that. I love that so much.
I think that should be with a big X on the
Generation X. Yeah, my generation was born on Friday the 13th. Yeah, I think I need to hold up. Gotta bust out my little note card here. My generation was born on Friday the 13th. I think I could sell a few of those.
I'd buy one.
Yeah. Friday the 13th. All right. That's good. Good stuff. Okay. Finishing up here. Counting back to the Awakeners, Lindbergh's peers are, in point of fact, the 13th to call themselves American citizens. Demographers have so far given them a name at once incorrect and insulting: baby busters. Population is not the issue. 13ers outnumber boomers by 10 million in 1990. You said that you didn't know if you hadn't confirmed this.
I don't. Yeah, I think this part's kind of.
Yeah.
I think the numbers are very skewed.
Okay. Well, if they include back to 1961.
Yeah, that's what and most of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the issue there. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Baby bust theorists see in the name some new youth advantage in a world of easing youth competition, but try telling that to collegians born in the smallish late 60s cohorts. Yet the worst aspect of this bust nomer, and why 13s resent it, is how it plants today's 25-year-olds squarely where they don't want to be, in the shadow of the boom, and negatively so, as though wonder has been followed by disappointment. To young Americans uninterested in labels, to those who still remain what Shan Nix calls the generation with no name, we assign a number, 13. The tag is a little Halloweenish, like the clothes they wear, and slippery like their culture. It's a name they can see as a gauntlet, a challenge, an obstacle to be overcome. The 13th card can be the ace, face down, in a game of high-stakes blackjack. Kings and queens with their pompous poses and fancy curlicues always lose to the uncluttered ace, going over or going under. The ace, like this generation, is nothing subtle, but it's nice to have around when you're in a jam. Ooh, he likes that.
On the back of your T-shirt,
mm-hmm.
it should say "In the shadow of the boom."
In the shadow of the boom.
Yeah. Yeah. On the front, it says, my generation was born on Friday the 13th. And on the back, it says, in the shadow of the boom.
In the shadow of the boom.
Ooh, that's a great T-shirt.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, let's get to some 13er facts.
13er facts. 13er facts. Here we come. We gotta have
our generation could have been a lot bigger. The 13th was, at the time of this book being published, the most aborted generation in American history. After rising sharply during the late 60s and early 70s, the abortion rate climbed by another 80% during the first 6 years, 1973 to 1979, after the Supreme Court's Roe versus Wade decision. Through the birth years of last wave 13ers, would-be mothers aborted one fetus in 3, which is why the Zennials, the late 70s Carter babies, is such a small number, is because of this right here. A third of 70s babies were aborted. So take that as you will. Parental divorce has struck 13ers harder than any other American generation. In 1962, half of all adult women believed that parents in bad marriages should stay together for the sake of the children. By 1980, only 1 in 5 thought so. A 13er child in the 1980s faced twice the risk of parental divorce as a boomer child in the mid-60s, and 3 times the risk of a silent child faced back in 1950. 4/5 of today's divorced adults profess to being happier afterward, but a majority of their children feel otherwise. Oh, that is brutal.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't have any frame of reference on, because my parents were married.
Yeah.
Until the day my dad died. So
my parents actually didn't get divorced until I was an adult. My parents got divorced when I was like 24.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you don't have a frame of reference on that. So
right.
But I can tell you, I mean, I did know a lot of my peers' friends were divorced, but I would say it didn't rise above 50% until after college. or after high school, really.
You know,
and even then, a lot of my parents' friends stayed together.
My parents stayed together for the kids as much as they could. My mom did. She wanted to play it out until she, my brother and I got older. My sister was like 15 or 16. She just couldn't do anymore. But it's just, we really went through it with our parents and how, our generation as a whole. And that was, and that you were lucky that you had both parents. And the data is so clear on this when it comes to two-parent households and how much more successful and just better lives and better situations kids are with two parents in the house. And Generation X really got hit hard with this. All right. No other American generation has ever grown up in families of such complexity. In 1980, just 56% of all dependent children lived with two once married parents, another 14% with at least one previously married parent, 11% with a step parent, 19% with one parent. 1 in 5 had siblings. The likelihood of children receiving support payments from the non-custodial parent declined from the boomer to 13er child eras. No other child generation has witnessed such a dramatic increase in domestic dissatisfaction and surge the workplace on the part of mothers. This is another big one. Between 1960 and 1980, among mothers with children aged 5 or under, the proportion with full or part-time jobs rose from 20 to 47%. Throughout the 1970s, the number of latchkey children under age 14 left alone after school roughly doubled. Woo!
Yep.
Man. We went through it. A late 1980 survey of teen trendsetters found 48% describing their mostly silent parents as cool versus just 7% as strict and 1% as nosy. According to youth marketer and pollster Irma Zondel, 13ers associate lack of parental authority with family instability. That's interesting. Observes Zondel, I've never heard any teenager say, I wish my father were more sensitive. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, maybe they didn't listen. That's...
Yeah, I would say that women did go into the workplace a lot more because of inflation, but I would say it was equal parts inflation and what they called at the time women's lib. It was definitely a lot of there was more than one factor when it came to women going into the house or going in the workforce and leaving the home. But yeah, we went through it. When they first reached high school, 13ers encountered much less of the teacher and voter indulgence that had greeted their next elders. So we got dumber, better, worse grades. A sampling, huh?
I love that.
Yeah.
Dumber and worse grades.
Yep. No more A's. Everybody's getting C's. A sampling of teachers who taught boomers in the mid-60s and 13ers in the mid-80s was asked to compare the two in 43 measures of aptitude and achievement. The score, boomers 38, 13ers 4 with one tie. The teachers scored boomers higher in academic skills, communications, ability, and commitment to learning. 13ers outscored boomers in negotiating skills, consumer awareness, adult interaction skills, and defenses to prevent extreme dependency on parent or authorities. Man, we were so different from the boomers. We couldn't have been more opposite from the boomers, I swear. Which is why I think it's the cuspers, the early 60s babies. It's very easy to tell if you're a boomer or a Gen Xer just based on, how you approach life, how you look at things. I think that makes a big difference in your what generation you're from. Let's see. The 13th, whoops. Didn't mean to flip that. The 13th is on its way to becoming the first generation since the Gilded to be less college educated than its next elders. That's interesting. I did not know that. That doesn't make hardly any sense. The first generation since the Gilded to be less college educated than its next elders. That's all I was ever told my whole life was you got to go to college. Got to go to college. Got to go to college. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So that's interesting.
Same. Both my parents were college graduates, and I was encouraged. And
yeah,
my
parents were both high school grads. So yeah, I graduated.
I didn't get my bachelor's until I was 35, but still, I went.
Yeah, I mean, the college education was just because all the factories were moving away, were being closed down, moving out. Like the jobs were for the college degree jobs. That there was
also at the same time though, education costs were starting to rise.
Yes,
and significantly did impact a lot of the late stage Gen Xers.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know. I would like to verify that. I don't know if that's actually a true statistic at this point. I could see it being true, but I don't know that the early data that they had here was going to pan out.
Right. That's a fair point.
They still had a lot more Gen X, like in 1990 you weren't even in.
I was 13. Yeah, I was barely in. I wasn't even in high school yet. So yeah.
So there's a whole cool.
That's a good point.
Cohort of people who hadn't even come close. So
that is fair. That's a fair point. Yeah, this is a little early on their.
I'd like to double check that, but
right. I need to go back and do that.
But that's okay. It is. I don't know that that's
not necessarily wrong. These are just snapshots in time. The numbers can change as we get through time here.
I believe it. I believe it.
Definitely. I would say college attendance rise in the 90s.
And I would say that the millennials probably will have had more college graduates than Gen X.
I agree with
that. Definitely see that Gen Z will have a precipitous drop, and Gen Alpha will have an even bigger one.
Yeah. Well, the state of education is definitely changing.
In American education in the next 10 years, which I don't see happening.
Right.
Unless they start making all school free in the next 10 years, people aren't going to go. So
yeah. Well, and I will say, because Sallie Mae was created in 1972. Oh. And then in 1993.
Triggering. Sallie Mae.
Yeah, sorry. No, and then when I was in high school, they started the Federal Direct Loan Program. So my point is when you introduce these federal loan programs, it automatically pushes up the price of education, because once you bring in a third party payer and loans and automatically backed guaranteed loans, colleges are going to start jacking up their prices. Because at first it was like, before you had the loans, say a credit for a class was $10 a credit or whatever for credit hour. Yeah. Because when I was in high school, you could go to the local community college for $30 a credit hour. So we'll go there.
Yeah.
So $30 a credit hour, because they had to keep it at an affordable place where I could afford to pay and go, right? But once you have a guaranteed third-party payer loan system come in, they're like, oh, that person just got a $2,000 loan, so let's make our credit $50 a credit or whatever. And so once you start so that's what jacked up the prices of school, was the guaranteed loans, unfortunately. And now we have all these colleges with billions and billions of dollars of endowments and really pretty administrative buildings and tuitions of $100,000 a year.
And they're paying the athletes now too.
Right. Oh, I'm right again. Woo! Yep. Anytime you have a third party payer of anything, I always use the example of having a company credit card, right? So when I worked for RJ Reynolds, I had a company credit card for expenses when I was on the road. And so on the days that I was home or in area where I had to take care of my own lunch, I would budget my lunch because I had to pay for it, right? So we're going through the McDonald's drive-through because it's on my dime. But on the days where I was out on the road and had the company credit card, Nally wasn't going to McDonald's. Nally was going, was going to go sit down at a more expensive restaurant because I wasn't paying. And so when you get that third party payer in there, it just really disconnects for prices, and then prices go up. So spending habits change, prices go up. So there is my financial TED Talk for the day. You're welcome. We'll move on. I get a little nerdy sometimes. Much like Michael J. Fox in Family Ties, the conservative kid of liberal parents, these are by far the most Republican-leaning youths in the 60-year history of age-based polling. From the boom to 13th, the partisan tone of young voters has shifted strikingly from roughly a 10-point Democratic advantage to a Republican edge that in 1985 reached 18 points. In 15 of 16 consecutive polls taken between 81 and 88, 13ers gave Ronald Reagan a higher approval rating than any other generation except the Lost. And so it goes it goes left-leaning for boomers, right-leaning for Gen X, left-leaning for millennials, and right-leaning for Gen Z if you're a guy. Left-leaning, I guess, if you're a girl. But yeah, it just always goes back and forth. It always flips, which makes sense, It's always the one rebels against the other.
Actually, I think,
Yep. 13er teenagers face a much lower risk of dying from disease than did silent teenagers 40 years ago. But this 13er advantage has been almost entirely offset by a much higher risk of dying from accidents, murder, and self-deletion. Nice. Roughly 2,000 minors were murdered in 1988, twice the number killed in 1965. Homicide is now the dominant cause of youth mortality in America's inner cities, especially among Black males 15 to 24-year-old living in Washington, D.C. Murder accounted for 47% of all deaths in 1987. We're a violent bunch, apparently, or we were. Fear is a pervasive reality within a generation of urban school children that brings an estimated 135,000 guns and 6 times as many knives to the classroom each day. As teenagers, 13ers are self-deleting more frequently than any generation since the Lost. Already, 13ers have become the most heavily incarcerated generation in American history. Yep, that's me. Get into that statistic. The decade of the 1970s brought a steep decline in the economic fortunes of children. From the 1950s to the early 1970s, the over 65 age bracket showed the highest poverty rate. Since 1974, the under 18 bracket has shown the highest. Yay, Gen X. Thus, the distinction of occupying America's poorest age bracket passed directly from Lost to 13th without ever touching GI, silent, or boomers along the way. Roughly 1 13er in 5 now lives in poverty. At the same time, 13ers report the most negative generational attitude toward welfare spending, and 2/3 believe that if they ever end up unemployed, it's their own fault. Through the 1980s, the 13ers' economic distress has moved right up the age ladder with them. In 1967, male wage earners in their early 20s made 74% as much as older males. By 1988, the ratio had fallen to 54%. Between 73 and 88, the median income of households headed by persons under 25 fell by 18%. The negative trend was not confined to unmarried 13er mothers. Even among married couples with children, the median income fell by 17%. This economic decline in our country dates back 5 decades. It was just absolutely under the surface of everything that had been going on. But this whole not being able to do as good as your parents, or the devaluation of the currency, the inflation, just all of it. It's been going on our whole lives. And it sucks.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like to live in prosperity anymore.
Prosperity? Well, I'll be honest. I lived in a very middle-class family growing up. By the time I graduated college, I would consider my parents probably upper middle class. But it's hard because rural upper middle class is different from polite society, urban, upper middle class. Because like when I say that, like they own their properties, they own their farms, like that kind of stuff. Like but they're not like society people or anything like that. Like, you know, they just own their stuff. They've worked hard their whole life and they own their stuff and they've done really well. So, you know, like, but we were never poor by any means. But my parents did live in a mobile home when I was born. But my dad started his own business and we bought a house when I was like 3 or 4 years old, our first house. So yeah, but there's been a lot of difference in the 13-year experience economically, but I think generationally overall, it has definitely declined from the mid-century on. Yeah, especially 1970. Once we got taken off the gold standard, that was a brutal hit to the.
Well, it's hitting us hard now too because we're not earning as much as our other cohorts are, as you know, in the workforce either. And
we're not what as much as our cohorts. We're not
earning as much. Oh. We're not earning as much, and it's harder for us to get jobs.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh, I know so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that really depends on where you're at and what part of the country you're in. Because in my experience, all the business owners right now in my town, they're all Gen Xers. There's some boomers, but you know, the Gen Xers run the businesses, they own the businesses, they own the homes. A lot of boomers too. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of success and I see a lot of I don't want to call it failure, but just not as much success among our generation. Just kind of depends where you are in your circumstances, you know. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Deb, you need to get out of California. You too, Grendelson.
Nah. I was born here. I'm gonna die here. I've already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Deb, I was telling Grendelson the other day that I think before we came on air that I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home here in Missouri less than like 4 years ago for $139,000, and it was a completely remodeled, gorgeous little home. So. Yeah, do the Midwest, baby girl, and we're getting ready to get rid of our state income taxes in here in Missouri. So Midwest is a place to be.
No, I don't think I would fit in very well. But
I think you'd fit in great. I think you'd fit in great. You go out to the.
I live and let live. But
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and that's kind of how rural farm folk are. Like, just live and let live, as long as like. Yeah. You know, we're not damaging or busting up each other's property or harming any other people. You know, it's just like, do your thing.
Don't come preaching to me. Otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't care about your God, but you know.
Right. I mean, you don't have to.
No. I mean, I just want to find a nice spot on the beach. You know.
Yeah. Understood.
I can't live anywhere. I've tried. I don't know. I mean. Truth be told, I've only ever lived in California, and it does scare me to try to even live anywhere else. So
we have our Cosmic Festival coming up soon. It's like a party out it's like a concert event out in a field where everybody gets really stoned, and like a lake. It's like a lake area next to a field, and everybody gets high, and like all these different bands come in and put on shows. So yeah, we have a lot of fun stuff around here. Live in a very beautiful area. Ozarks are fun.
Electric Deb, your husband works for the Port of LA. San Pedro.
Gotcha. Well, it's a nice area, and you're just paying through the nose for it. I get it. All right, let's move on here.
I mean, the thing is it didn't always, and also it wasn't always like this. And also, California is an extremely big state. And there are and I will say this, most of California is more like the Midwest than you would think.
Yeah, the eastern parts of it, you know, there's definitely a lot of.
there's a lot of like basically outside of LA and San Francisco, the state is almost red.
Right.
Okay.
Definitely in the culture, but in the expenses is the hard part.
True, but the rest of the state outside of the two urban areas is very pastoral and Midwestern like and very agricultural as well. So we do get it bad. The two Bay Area, LA and San Diego or San Francisco get that that rap, but
right.
The rest, California isn't necessarily all that. And don't forget, Reagan came from California, and so did Nixon.
I know. They both were governors. Well, I compare it to Illinois because Chicago is as blue in the most urban area, but the rest of Illinois is as red can be. It's two completely different worlds. The problem is when you have a government that only governs for the Chicago and not the state of Illinois, because there's such different interests. And I think that's what's happened in California is the interest of someone in San Francisco or Los Angeles are going to be quite different from someone living, near the Nevada border or whatever. So,
and also not just that, it's also the two major urban areas are quite different from each other and have well. And then you add, the other major cities into the mix. Yeah, Sacramento is just it's a hellhole. It's a wasteland of self-interest. But
right,
I would still say that our state constitution is pretty strong. So
yeah, well, to bring it out to a broader view, it's why I love our electoral college because if you let heavy, dense areas of populations control everybody else, it can really throw off the balance of your government and how you do things. So I love the electoral college because it allows the smaller states to have a say. Otherwise, New York and California would absolutely just do whatever they wanted. And everybody else would get left behind. So, and you could do the same thing in your states when you go, micro down. What LA wants to do, what people in Sacramento want to do might not help the person in Fresno, but it might help the guy in, Silicon Valley or whatever. So it's just like, it's difficult. There's such a vast difference, of agriculture and populations.
I'm of the opinion that we should break up California into 3 different states, but that's just me.
Yeah.
We should have
that's not a terrible idea. Either that or, that's not a terrible idea.
Yeah. Or just let us be our own country.
Or just I really like the idea of just like really just making Washington DC almost nothing and just let every state do their own thing as if they were their own little countries, but we just have a common constitution for, defense and interstate commerce and basic rights and traditional rights.
In the 1800s, because that's what we had.
Yeah, I know. I'll go back to the 1800s. No, I won't because I want air conditioning.
You'd be churning butter and can't vote.
I don't care about the vote thing. I really don't care. Churning butter would be rough. That would be a rough thing. That's a lot of work.
Also, at how old? You'd probably be dead by now. So
Nah.
Yeah, maybe not.
No. Late 1800s, early 1900s, life expectancy was still around 65 to 67. That's why when they made Social Security age 65 in the 1930s, the life expectancy was like 67, 64, somewhere like you had to really they were really making it for the end of your life there, but yeah. So all right, let's move along. Let's get this wrapped up.
We could do it all day, but we should.
Yeah. From 60s to the 80s, the proportion of household heads age 18 to 24 owning their own homes fell by 1/3, the steepest decline for any age bracket. In 1990, 3 out of 4 young men that age were still living at home, the largest proportion since the Great Depression. And I think we're about at that percentage again.
Oh, I'm sure it's a lot higher.
Yeah. 75% of men between 18 and 24. Yeah. It's probably right there, if not higher. During the 13er childhood era, America has substantially shifted the federal fiscal burden from old to the young, thanks. Since 1972, older generations have deferred paying for some $2 trillion in current consumption through additional U.S. Treasury debt. That's still sitting on the books, mind you. A policy 5 times more expensive for the average 15-year-old than for the average 65-year-old. And these are things that we got to remember now. The stuff that you do now affects your grandchildren. In 1990, according to the House Ways and Means Committee, a young 13er couple with 1 worker, a baby, and $30K in wage income had to pay 5 times as much in taxes as the typical retired GI couple with the same income from public and private pensions. That almost makes you mad when you read that. At least it did me.
The retired GI couple probably owns their own house. And
with their
mortgage at that point, and they, the taxes is all they have to pay.
Yep. And this is how it's been our whole lives. Once they changed this, like they said, 1972. Since 72, older generations have deferred all the debt to the young. Before 13ers came along, post-war sociologists generally assumed that hardening cynicism was a function of advancing age. No longer. From 1965 to 1990, the share of all Americans under age 35 who look at a newspaper daily declined from 2/3 to less than 1/3, by far the steepest drop of any age bracket. In a late 1980 survey of cynical Americans, researchers noted that the biggest surprise was how cynicism now seems to defy the traditional partnership of youth and idealism. Today, cynicism is hitting hardest among young adolescents, more than half of those aged 24 and under. They think it's all bull. We have a lot in common with Gen Z, don't we? Joseph thinks that the Electoral College gives small states too much power. I disagree. They get, California gets what, 30-something electoral votes? Texas gets like 40.
No, we got 40.
Like my Missouri, we get 11. We have to have a little bit of say. I think it's genius. Genius, I tell you. All right. The life cycle. The 13-year life cycle. All right.
I'm not a fan of the Electoral College, but I don't know that direct voting is any better.
Oh, God, no. You would never want direct voting. Just think right now with democracy. Half the country doesn't like the way the other half votes as it is. Like, people say they love democracy, but they really don't. Because because it means that you have to go along. Like, the whole left right now is mad that at Trump, and they're like, they should get rid of him. It's like, he was elected by a democracy, by the majority of the people, whether you like it or not. That's what the result of democracy is. So the majority wins. And it sucks. But yeah, direct democracy would be a madhouse. There's no way that would work. That's two wolves in a sheep voting for what's for dinner. That is not a good plan. All right, 13-year life cycle. The years of the consciousness revolution were among the most virulently anti-child periods in American history, producing a childhood world Tom Cruise recalls as kind of scattered. Sacrificing one's own career or conjugal happiness became passé, even by the logic of the era, bad for kids themselves. As the 1960s wore on, silent mothers and fathers increasingly looked at their children as hindrances to self-exploration. Jesus Christ. Selfish. By the 1970s, they cast an envious eye at young boomers who then mainly looked upon babies like headaches, things you take pills not to have. Adults ranked autos ahead of children as necessary for the good life, and the cost of raising a child became a hot topic. A flurry of popular books chronicled the resentment, despair, and fiscal discomfort women were said to endure when bearing and raising 13er children. It's gotten just even worse than that. It's exploded now. It's really gone down that road, hasn't it? It's gotten to the point where the right to abort is like the number one women's issue. It's no longer raising kids and soccer moms. It's abortion. It's just crazy how our culture has changed so much in our lifetimes. In ourselves and our own children, consider yourself was ranked ahead of benefiting our children as a principle of sound parenting. Popular parental guides emphasize why to-dos over what to-dos, concluding that doing the right thing was less important than parent and child each feeling the right thing. To accomplish that, authors like Thomas Gordon advise parents to teach children to understand behavioral consequences at very young ages. Oh, our childhood was a good time. Divorce and its attendant confusion and impoverishment became the central fear of the 13er childhood world. In It's Not the End of the World, Judy Blume offered children the tale of a once happy family disintegrating amid shouting, slapping, and crying. Hearing these messages, even kids in stable families felt vulnerable and reacted by hardening their shells against adversity. While parents tried to persuade themselves that family dissolution freed parent and child to have better and less constricted time together, these kids saw things differently. Oops, over.
Shout out Judy Blume.
Judy Blume. Yep. 13ers knew that where boomers had been once worth the parental sacrifice of prolonging an unhappy marriage, they were not. Coping with the debris, America's 1970s era children went from a family culture of my 3 sons to one of my 2 dads, encountering step-thises, half-that's, significant others, and strangers at the breakfast table beyond what any other child generation ever knew. Reading Norma Klein's It's Okay If You Don't Love Me, a child could ponder the fate of an adolescent girl who juggled a sex life with 2 boyfriends while sorting through her feelings about her mother's lover, her mother's former second husband, and her father's second wife and their 2 children. Jesus Christ. How did we even survive?
I didn't read that book. The hell book is that?
Yeah. I'm glad we can have civilized succession too, Joseph. I love it. I love it.
I was reading that fucking book.
Through the 1970s, the media reinforced the growing view among children that adults were not especially virtuous, competent, or powerful. Adult life held no secrets. From TV sitcoms to breakthrough youth books, older generations made little effort to shield children from any topic, no matter what the effect on a child's sense of security and comfort. I hate the idea that you should always protect children, wrote Judy Blume in defense of her books. They live in the same world we do. Mad Magazine's Al Feldstein put it more bluntly. We told them that there's a lot of garbage out in the world and you got to be aware of it. One self-care guide for latchkey children advised kids of ways you can protect yourself from mugging and assault. Always pay attention to what is happening around you when you're on the street. And so 13ers were deliberately encouraged to react to life as you would hack through a jungle. Keep your eyes open, expect the worst, and handle it on your own. Boy, they had us pegged, didn't they?
We had latchkey kid guidebooks. I forgot about that.
Yep. Oh, I should get one of those. I should definitely get one of those. All right. Approaching rising adulthood. This will be the end of the 13er chapter. I got a lot highlighted here.
It's a long one.
It's a long one. Even as first waivers reach their late 20s, this generation cannot be said to have come of age. That's fair enough, because like we said, half the generation wasn't even teenagers yet. Or not half, but you know what I mean. Nothing yet cements them emotionally. To date, 1991, the 13th remains a splintery generation. People can and do find almost anything they want in these kids. Far more than older generations, 13ers come with myriads of regional subgroups and ethnic mini-cultures, each thinking its own thoughts, listening to its own music, laying its own plans, and paying little heed to each other. Yet the first signs of bonding are beginning to appear. A common alienation, visible in 13er art and writing, and in their growing awareness of their own economic vulnerability. Sure, we're early alienated, admits American University student Daniel Ralph, but who wouldn't be in our shoes? 13ers are coming to realize that they bear much of the burden for the Reagan-era prosperity that so enriched the silent NGIs. In inner cities, their impoverishment has caused adult alarm. Elsewhere, it's been less noticed thanks to a veneer of family-subsidized teen affluence. Even in the suburbs, 13ers entering the labor force are bearing much of their nation's new burden of foreign competition and debt. In industries where productivity is stagnant, two-tier wage systems hold elders harmless while making the new hires bear the full cost-cutting burden. Oh my God, I feel this in my bones. Where foreign investors bid up the price of real estate, current homeowners profit, but would-be young homebuyers pay. Even as the 1980s era spurt of tax reform lowered the tax rate on high bracket incomes, FICA taxes on after-school wages kept going up. This is unbelievable. I mean, and it's just amazing. Like, these seeds are being planted and now they have grown into like redwood trees. Even in like right here, the 13ers entering the labor force are bearing much of their nation's new burden of foreign competition and debt. Yeah. I mean, welcome to 2026. Oh my God. Let's see what else. Spurred by the sense of economic need, youths are working younger, longer, later at night, and at more dangerous jobs than any child generation since the loss. As federal administrators chart the steady rise in child labor law violations, 13ers carefully hone their survivalist ethic. 2/3 believe they will have to work harder than earlier generations simply to enjoy the same standard of living. I feel like this book has looked at my Twitter feed in the last few days. After leaving school, 13ers face tough choices made all the more frustrating by the adult wealth they see around them. Scanning her life's options, one Washington, D.C. youth complained, "The way society presents it, I'll either be strung out on drugs, a manager at McDonald's, or a lawyer. Something resembling her middle course is the most frequent path. As many find themselves doing the low-wage counter, delivery, and cleaning jobs boomers have always found demeaning, the Mick jobs that Amate Etzioni describes as more time-consuming, less character-building than what talented youths used to look forward to. In most professions, law, medicine, business, the media, 13ers are encountering less promising promotion paths than the boom knew at their age, and a smaller likelihood of ever getting a second chance if they fail the first time. So far, they have concealed their plight thanks to the distinctly 13er habit of calling as little attention as possible to what they are feeling. In life, as when they walk down the street with their Walkman and designer shades, they know how to keep others from knowing what they're hearing, watching, or thinking. Let me get over here. They leave their troubles behind when they come to work and take their minds off the job when they leave. Boomer bosses like ad exec Penny Erickson see them as not driven from within, best suited for short-term tasks and in need of reinforcement from above. Ask 13ers how they're doing, and as long as life stays reasonably patched together, no problem is their answer. They have learned to adjust by moving quickly into, and when they see a dead end, out of jobs. Like you were talking about earlier, the job hopping that we were talking about earlier. They look for quick strikes ahead of long-term promises. The Wall Street Journal describing them as more willing to gamble their careers than earlier generations. Often their best chance for success comes from striking out on their own, finding a small market niche, and filling it more cheaply and sensibly than older run businesses. I like that.
Yeah.
Having no place to boomerang to, inner city 13ers inhabit an especially grim world that does not like them, does not want them, and as they see it, has nothing to offer them. There's a growing malaise that young people suffer from, says Victor Herbert, director of New York City high schools. They feel they're not to be trusted, they're not good people, and they don't have to follow whatever inhibitions have been built up, especially when they're moving in a crowd. Urban kids have begun reacting with a nihilism that older generations consider proof of their worthless ruin. A new reactionary style of sexism, racism, and soulless violence has seeped into 13er pen song lyrics. As Ice-T raps about bitches, young thugs commit what elders call hate crimes targeted against gays, women, and high-achieving ethnic groups. A new breed of young criminals shows a remorseless bent towards killing and maiming for no serious reason. Prizefighter Mike Tyson has admitted to having shot at a lot of people. I like to see them run. I like to see them beg. Where boomer youths who assaulted silent victims were said to have mitigating reasons for their antisocial behavior, 13ers who attacked boomer victims, as in the Bernard Goetz and the Central Park jogger cases, are condemned in the boom-led media as evil thugs deserving only of execution or at best a stiff term in some boot camp prison. Back in the late 60s, boomer crime was associated with rage and betrayed expectations. Today, the young 13er criminal strikes elders as emotionally detached, even insensible. William Raspberry accuses them of being a generation of animals. Damn. Stanton's same now of having the ability to shut off their conscience. The kids themselves invented the word wilding to describe their behavior. Have you ever heard the word wilding? Because I've never.
No.
Yeah. That was kind of weird. I didn't get the whole wilding thing.
No,
so they can't be perfect. We can, Strauss and Howe is going to have to get something wrong.
There was that whole trend of movies, though, around the late 70s and the early 80s about groups of kids who would just like roam around and do weird shit. And I know The Wanderers is the one I'm thinking of, but there's a couple of other. Over the Edge was one, and then I think there was one with River Phoenix. Yeah,
was
that was like. But I
never saw about earlier. Yeah,
I knew it was in the media, but I never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I didn't live in an urban environment. So, I mean, that was not the world I lived in. My childhood or my teenage years looked more like Dazed and Confused. Like we all meet up at the drive-in, burger joint and then go out and party in a field. So like we were very different from just very different lifestyle. So wilding was never a thing for me.
My high school experience was more like head of the class.
Oh, that's not a bad thing. Head of the class is pretty cool. Were you in the honors program?
Yeah, the whole school was like that.
Oh yeah, sweet.
Yeah, it was strange.
Repeal the 16th. Is that income tax? I think so. 16th is income tax. 17th is senators' elections. I think, and then 19th is the female suffrage. Hello, Claudia. How's it going?
Some of the teen ones I forget because they aren't that important.
Yeah. Well, I would say the income tax and the Federal Reserve is hella important. But but they don't get talked about as much. Income tax. That's what I thought. Yeah, 16, 17, and 18 and 19 are just those were some interesting amendments. All right, let's wrap this up because we're getting close to the end here. Huh?
Wasn't 18 prohibition or was that 19?
I believe so. Yeah, 18th is prohibition, 19th was women's suffrage, and the 20th was the repeal of prohibition, or 21st. Yeah, 16 income tax, 17 Federal Reserve, 16 income tax, 17 states, senators, 18 Federal Reserve. I'll get it right. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, let's wrap it up here.
I'm getting ready for them to invoke the 25th.
Yeah, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. When you
love it if it would.
Yeah, he was elected. Oh, the Lost Boys wilding. That's a perfect example. Of the Lost Boys. I love that.
Great.
Love it.
Saw it in the theaters a couple years ago. It was awesome.
Oh, you did? How fun.
Yeah, at the Beverly. That's Quentin Tarantino's theater here in LA.
Oh, neat. How fun.
It was really good. Forgot.
All right. Here's the end. We're going to go to page 333 and we're going to close this out. Closing out Generation X. Late in 1989, as East German students poured over the Berlin Wall, a Washington Post article described high school kids as left flat and utterly unmoved by events that brought their teachers tears of joy. The youth attitude that strikes elders as blasé is, from the 13er perspective, unflinching and realistic. They have already trampled through the dirty beach where idealism can lead. Remember how the freedom of open classrooms produced noisy chaos and gave them what others constantly tell them was a bad education? They've learned to be skeptical about what happens whenever barriers are broken down. Yeah, that's kind of smart. Maybe there will be new wars, maybe bad economic news. At the very least, new competition. These kids were less surprised than their teachers when Iraq shattered the post-Cold War peace. American campuses were hardly fazed. Berkeley freshman Charles Connolly speaking for many when he said, "I think we should go in there and take care of it, full throttle." Meanwhile, thousands of Connolly's peers throttled off in uniform to keep oil flowing from Saudi Arabia to the big American homes and cars that so few 13ers can ever imagine buying at the same age their parents did. Where the Korean War once featured hard-boiled, Truman-esque elders and sensitive MASH-like juniors, the Persian Gulf crisis features the opposite. Silent 60-year-olds assume the complex polysyllabic tasks, satellite communications, multilateral negotiations, peace process evaluations. 13 or 20-year-olds prepare for the brute, one-syllable jobs: sweat, hide, move, hit, and kill. Amid his silent peers' euphoria over the end of the Cold War, pollster Peter Hart published a highly critical report about democracy's next generation, noting that only 12% of them mentioned voting as an attribute of good citizenship. Then again, 48% mentioned personal generosity. Having grown up in an age of anti-institutional feeling, 13ers look at it this way: when you vote, maybe you'll waste your time, or worse, later feel tricked. But when you do something real, like bringing food to the homeless, you do something that matters, if only on a small scale. The president of MIT has likened the 13er civic attitude to that of the Lone Ranger. Do a good deed, leave a silver bullet, and move on. In The Disappearance of Childhood, Neil Postman observes that when 13ers were little, adults gave children answers to questions they never asked. That problem still plagues this generation, except now the questions are, in effect, what made you the way you are, and how can we fix it? Blue Ribbon silent committeemen anguish over how to change their attitude about government, and inner city boomers look internally to understand how we produce these children. But 13ers consider such efforts a waste of time and energy. From their angle, there's the temptation to play Max Headroom and say a computer programmed, "I'm sorry." Mostly they figure such talk is pointless, like aspiring opera singer Marie Xavier, who says that even if you didn't want us, you made us, but we're here and we're going to make the best of it. They know they are a generation without an elder-perceived mission. Yet, in spite of all the criticism and generally low expectations, Daniel Ralph insists that his generation will make a difference. What 13ers ask of others, maybe hopelessly, is to lend an unjaundiced ear and check out what Nancy Smith calls our attitude, a coolness, a detachment, and the way we speak, ironic, flip, uncommitted, a question mark at the end of every other sentence. Dial into our style, invites Miles Orkin in his essay. It's not like some fully bent tongue from hell or anything. Their elders don't see it yet. 13ers themselves only dimly sense it. But this streetwise generation does indeed bring a bag of savvy tricks their elders lack, skills that may come in handy the next time America gets into real trouble. More than anyone, they have developed a seasoned talent for getting the most out of a bad hand. Take note, Beaver Cleaver. 13ers may never have glimpsed Nirvana, but they know how to win. That was awesome.
That last line, because
yeah,
I don't know that Nirvana was there yet.
Nirvana was not there yet.
I can't remember when Smells Like Teen Spirit hit, but
it hit in September of 91.
Yeah, well, this book was written before that.
Yep.
And believe me, no one knew who they were before that. So
yeah. Who after the Daniel Ralph dude? He was just a Gen Xer that they interviewed. They did interviews at different colleges, and he was one of them. Oh. Right? Isn't it great? I just love my generation. I do. That's true. If they couldn't 20 but mine, then nobody qualifies.
I feel like we're going to be the cool older generation now.
We are.
I hope that like the younger cohorts start seeing us more as like oh, these guys actually have some wisdom. Maybe we should listen to them for a little bit and see if they have any ideas,
I
because
think
no
Gen
one
Z
else.
is feeling that. Yeah.
I think
But
Gen Z is definitely doing that. I don't think I think millennials are. I don't know what the millennials are doing.
I don't know what the millennials are doing. I really don't. I think that
You're a
the only
millennial out
problem is
there. You're actually here. If you're a millennial and you're listening to this, what are you doing?
what are you doing,
What are you
millennials?
doing with
I
your
don't even
life?
know. You're all in your 30s, and
Yeah,
into your
come on, you're
40s
getting into
now.
your
Like,
40s.
what are you guys doing?
Are they having midlife crises yet? I don't think they are.
Probably. The only thing is that a lot of the younger generations see anybody older than them as a boomer, no matter if you're a Gen X or a millennial or whatever.
I hate
So,
that too.
like, we have that issue as well. So, as much as we have Gen Zers that are teaming up with Gen Xers in a lot of ways, and in some places, it's the exact opposite. Like the young kids just want nothing to do with anybody older. But they're going to have to deal with it because, unfortunately, Gen X is the generation that's going to be in charge in the next decade or so. Either, in your face in charge or behind the scenes in charge, but they're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't get like a secret history of the Illuminatus and who's on the actual board of whoever runs the actual planet.
Right.
Because I guarantee you their ages,
right.
If there's 9 people and 8 of them are boomers, then yeah, we can understand why the world is the way it is. And I bet you there's just Gen Xers because the boomers won't die.
Yeah. And somebody I was talking to the other day was like, the boomers are never going to die because they're going to transfer their consciousness into some computer and still run everything via AI, and they're not going to let it go. They're never going anywhere. Like, no, you're right. Millennials are a carbon copy of epic boomers. They were so coddled. Speaking of millennials, I'm going to read a little bit about them, and then we're going to wrap up this part 2 and wrap up this book club. In September of 1988 at Burrville Elementary in Washington, D.C., 5 and 6-year-old children arrived for their first day of kindergarten wearing brand new green and yellow coats and ties, blouses and dresses.
College.
If Boomer school board member Nate Bush gets his way, these kids will wear school-issued clothes all the way through high school. Like it or not, parents are going to have to exercise their authority and say, I'm the parent, you're the child, and this is a good idea. These kids in green coats and yellow blouses are the vanguard of America's millennial generation. Cute, cheerful, scout-like, wanted. Not since the 1910s, when midlife missionaries dressed child GIs in Boy Scout brown, have adults seen such advantage in making kids look alike and work together. Not since the early 1900s have older generations moved so quickly to assert greater adult dominion over the world of childhood and to implant civic virtue in a new crop of youngsters. There was a big debate in the 90s with school uniforms. Did you guys have that debate where you were at, or whether or not you should be in uniforms in school?
I went to public school, so
yeah, so did I.
We didn't have
there was never any discussion at all.
No, but my kid, several places in public schools, kid had to wear uniforms.
Okay.
I mean, there was variations. They didn't have to wear the same thing, but yeah.
Right. There was a dress code standard there that had to be.
Yeah, but it was
white shirt, blue pants, or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uniform clothing. Yeah.
Even the timing of this new generation is historic. Its birth years will stretch to and probably just beyond the year 2000, the end of the second millennium. As the 90s begin, the year 2000 is becoming a national target date, much like the 1969 deadline President Kennedy once set for landing a man on the moon. I don't really feel that way. Was 2000 like some kind of target date for some big thing or project? I never felt like it was just Y2K, everything's going to fall apart. It was never like.
I always thought growing up, I always thought like the year 2000 was going to be some sort of, like kind of magical, future,
right. Yeah.
Kind of
but there wasn't any there wasn't any like push like how Kennedy wanted, a man in the or space flight by the end of the 60s, right? Like there was never anything like that was like we got to do this before 2000. It was we got to fix all the computers to make sure the world doesn't.
Yeah, make sure they don't crash. Yeah. And that was such a nothing burger because we did it. So yeah.
Right.
So we actually solved the problem because it wasn't that big of a deal. Okay.
Right.
Yay us. Don't do that again in 1,000 years. In 1,000 years, we'll have bubbles being computers. Who knows?
Oh, yay. Let's see what we got here. In 1990, the nation's governors set an ambitious agenda of educational goals for the year 2000, including a 90% high school graduation rate for the class of 2000. President Bush agreed, promising that by the year 2000, U.S. students will be the first in the world in mathematics and science achievement. That's cute. That's cute that he thought that. Let's see. We don't even know. We don't need to go into sample members because
I mean, a couple things.
They were like all three.
High school of the class of 2000. I don't know. I mean, that seems like it kind of came true.
Say what again? Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Surgeon General declared the nation's determination to produce a smoke-free high school by the class of 2000.
Yes. And I think that happened. I mean, we had a smoking section in my high school property, but by the time we graduated, it had pretty much it had been shut down. Did you guys have a smoking section in your high school?
No.
You didn't?
We had a nerd school.
Oh, that's right. You did have a nerd school. We had a teacher's lounge where they could smoke, and then the students could smoke out in the smokers alley right across. There was a certain area in the parking lot.
We did have an open campus, though.
Oh. We did not have that. We did not have that until senior year.
And come back.
Yeah, senior year we could do that, but undergrad.
To this day, I can't figure out how I actually graduated because I'm pretty sure I ditched every single class I could from January of my senior year to June. I think they just really wanted me out.
Yeah. They were like, we don't care if you come to class or not. Here's your diploma. Bye-bye.
You're a good kid. You know more than you should. Fucking go away.
Yeah. I think school uniform. There's a lot to be said for school uniforms, especially back then when people were being shot for tennis shoes and hypercolor clothes and brand labels and stuff like that. I think there's a lot to be said for basic school uniforms. I remember once.
It didn't really bother me. I thought, it is what it is. So it's easier to have them. It is actually easier to just have a set of clothes that's specifically for one thing and one thing.
That's the thing. It causes it kind of calms the social conflicts that can arise among children.
Oh, they just find other ways to.
Oh, they would.
They, remember I know the backpack tchotchke thing, with all their charms and their, all that stuff started. I think it's a direct result of the fact that they couldn't, embellish their clothing like we could, I remember we had buttons and stuff that we would put on our backpacks, but mostly was on our clothing, denim jackets with buttons or leather jackets with buttons or whatever. If that gets taken away, what do you do? So
right.
I used to put shit on my backpack though too.
Yep, absolutely. You gotta make it your own, personalized things.
What about the ultimate debate? Backpacks, 2 straps or 1.
I always went with 2. I was a nerd. Nerd. Man, in college I had to have 2 because my books got so heavy. I had so much.
For this thing.
Oh my god! But I'm gonna have. Yeah, it was.
It was a thing in my high school for sure. But
yeah, do they even need backpacks anymore since everything's on a laptop or tablet? Do they even carry books and book bags?
You know what? I don't know.
I really don't know either.
I don't have a kid in school right now, so
I don't either. Yeah. Oh, paperback book covers; those are great.
You know what I used to do is grab the calendar for the local rep and revival theaters near me and use that as my book cover. So my book cover would have all these old movies on it.
Oh, cool! That's kind of neat. I like that. That's really creative.
Nerd.
We're going to start off next week talking a little bit more about the millennials before we dive into not much, but I've got to stop now. I've got a cat yelling at me for dinner. I've got other people asking, waiting for stuff, so I'm gonna have to bow out of here since it's almost 9:00. But we'll pop into the millennials next week a little bit. Like we're talking like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get on to the past is prologue. We're getting into the future now, so I'm excited. This was a good. I really thought what it boils down to it that Strauss and Howe really had a good. They had their finger on the pulse of Gen X pretty well. I mean, I'd say they're probably about 90%. With how they, 80 to 90%, they had us pegged for that time in time in our history. I think they did pretty well.
Yeah, they didn't really go too far into the future predictions yet. So
not yet. We have to get to the next. The last chapter of the book will be the big predictions. So this was just about us up to that point. So the future will be the next couple of weeks. So and we'll wrap up the book and get to the fourth turning. So past is prologue is the chapter for next week that we'll be reading. Thank you, Electric Deb. I appreciate you with your comments. Same with you, Joseph, Sean, Edward. Guys, I really appreciate you. Claudia, I really appreciate you guys putting in your comments. Rachel, got so many good ones. It's been a really good discussion, and I really, really liked this chapter. I thought it was for the first people to try to tackle who this generation was and what they were about. I thought they gave us our due and really put it out there.
It's really even-handed and does let us know how we're viewed by our peers.
Yeah.
With that, and they said that the way that they couched it, it was like most of the negatives, they were saying weren't necessarily true.
Right.
And here's the
evidence. They weren't our fault. Yeah.
Or there's something else at play here too. So
right.
Or it wasn't our fault. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that for a first attempt at trying to define who we are. They did a pretty good job for our phase of life at the time. So
don't forget, our generation was born on Friday the 13th.
We were born on Friday the 13th, baby.
Boom. That is a great t-shirt.
That is going to be. Yeah. I might have to make some of those very soon. Hope maybe if I can get on and I can get some for next week.
Saying on it on a black t-shirt,
Yep.
I like it.
It's good. Yep. Tomorrow night on the Discord is Little House and Cobra Kai. So join me over there if you haven't already. Otherwise, I will see you guys next Tuesday for the next chapter. The past is prologue. Everybody be prepared. Thank you, Grendelson.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Have a good night, everybody. Good night. Thank you.